Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio. So today, I am showing you the best deck in Japan, or at least the deck that won what is essentially Japanese nationals. And it's Gardevoir GX, and this makes me delighted. Now, we're playing 4 Ralts and 3 Kirlia just to get Gardevoir out. Now, the winning deck also played 3 Gardevoir GX, and I love Gardevoir GX. Gardevoir GX has many good things going for it. It's got an amazing ability that allows you to attach an extra energy per turn. It has a really nice attack that allows it to do 30 damage times the amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon. So of course you can already see how this is working here. You just pile energy on with Secret Spring and then you smash with Infinite Force. You've also got Twilight GX here, which allows you to shuffle 10 cards from your discard pile into your deck. Now you could use this to recover energy in the late game, or to recover Pokemon, or make sure you've got all your Lysander, but what this is really nice for is against Gardevoir. Gardevoir is a huge threat at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. So what do? You make sure that you shuffle 10 item cards into your discard. So you've essentially got 0 item cards there, and Gardevoir can do nothing. And that really is the main attacker in this deck. This deck is built to get Gardevoir out and then go for it. And here, your main attack has got to be Infinite Force. You're not hitting a huge amount of stuff for weakness, and that's okay. Because you know what? This is just a generally powerful attack. But there are other Pokemon in this deck that we need to have a look at. There was one Gallade here. Why is Gallade so good? Because it also evolves from Kirlia. So you can just be playing this as a literal one-card tech to chuck down whenever. And then you've got the ability Premonition that allows you to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and put them on top in any order. That's a handy bonus. But you've got Sensitive Blade here, double colourless energy, 150 if you played a supporter card this turn. And let's face it, you're going to have played a supporter card. And heck, with TAPU LELE running around, it's easier than ever to find that supporter card. And this is particularly good because Darkrai GX is out in Japan at the moment, and that is a very, very good deck. You need to be on the lookout for it. A 2-2 Octillery line, 2 REMORAID, 2 Octillery. Octillery works beautifully with Gallade. One thing I find very interesting, a whole bunch of people have tried to make Gallade Octillery as a deck, and it's always been just a little bit slow and a little bit inconsistent. Well, Gardevoir here as your main attacker really, really helps, as does DIANCIE, but more on that in a moment. 2 TAPU LELE, because, well, why would you not play 2 TAPU LELE? Honestly, you could play more here. Like an awful lot of decks, this has dropped Shaymin EX, because Shaymin's got 110 HP. And it gives up 2 prizes. It's too weak, to be perfectly honest, ladies and gentlemen. It's too much of a liability. So people have stopped playing it and they play TAPU LELE instead. I don't blame them. Now, I mentioned a moment ago DIANCIE. Let's have a quick look at DIANCIE. Really here, it's for the attack for 1 fairy energy. You get to search your deck for a Pokemon that evolves from one of your Pokemon and evolve it up. And this is especially good because at the beginning of your next turn it's already there. So if you use DIANCIE to evolve a Ralts into a Kirlia, then you can immediately on the next turn evolve into a Gardevoir. This is another reason why Gallade was a little bit too slow, but Gardevoir isn't. Turn 1 you bench Ralts, evolve it using DIANCIE, and then turn 2 you've got Gardevoir GX already ready to go. Not to mention you can then attach 2 energy and be hitting a minimum of 60 with Infinite Force if your opponent has 0 energy attached to their active, which we all know they're not going to. And of course there is some nice synergy here between TAPU LELE and Gardevoir. They've both got similar styles of attacks of piling energy on. Finishing off, we've got one of the promo Giratina. Why? Because in Japan they're playing X and Y on they're not playing Primal Clash on, the second place deck at this tournament was Trevenant Break. So you need to play Giratina to turn off abilities of Break Pokemon. So now Trevenant Break either gets the good attack on Trevenant Break, Silent Fear, but loses the ability that blocks item cards, or blocks item cards but loses Silent Fear. Either way, you're doing very well, and that's a good thing. And finally, one Oricorio. Why one Oricorio? It's just a generally good attack, ladies and gentlemen. It's a good Pokemon. It's just for this really nice attack, and we're seeing this in so many decks at the moment, that just allows you to put one damage counter on the field for every Pokemon in your opponent's discard. But of course, in Japan they're playing X and Y on, so you've got Night March in the format. Giratina is very much a response to Trevenant. Oricorio is very much a response to Night March. In terms of energy, 6 Fairy energy, maybe more would be needed. It would be nice, but you've got to try and fit everything in. One thing that is interesting is that Gardevoir attaches from the hand, not the deck. So you've actually got to have 2 energy in your hand. And one of them's got to be a Fairy energy. Otherwise, you can only attach 1. And there's none of the other Oricorio in this deck. Just isn't. Maybe it's fear of ability lock, maybe it's because it's a terrible starter. 1 Wonder Energy. Now, as a quick side note here, Wonder Energy only counts as a Fairy energy when it's attached, which means you cannot attach it using Gardevoir's ability here. But it really doesn't matter, because you can just attach Wonder Energy as the energy attachment for your turn, and then a Fairy with the ability. What it does mean is that you cannot attach both a Wonder Energy and a double colourless in the same turn. Speaking of which, we are playing 4 double colourless here, because Gardevoir's attack says 30 times the number of energy. Doesn't matter what energy you've got on you. So really here, the ideal is on turn 2, when you've got your Gardevoir going, you attach a double colourless and a Fairy, and then you're hitting for a minimum of 90. And that's if your opponent has no energy attached to them. It's that fast, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in terms of supporters, for Professor Sycamore, it's fast and consistent. 3N, it's good in the early game. Slightly worse because you're not expecting to go down multiple prizes here, but it's still the second best supporter we've got. 1 KORRINA, and it's for Gallade here. You can go and KORRINA and search yourself a rare candy and a Gallade, and then immediately evolve up. That's why you play 1 KORRINA. And don't forget, you can use TAPU LELE to search KORRINA, and that's good. 1 copy of Guzma, because in Japan this has been released, and this is better than Lysander, because it's a switch as well. 1 copy of Brigitte, because, well, Wonder Tag for Brigitte. We've been doing it ever since Guardians Rising came out. You can just go and search, and ideally here, you want to go and get yourself a DIANCIE and 2 Ralts, and then off you go. Maybe even something like a REMORAID to get a turn to Octillery. That would be lovely. And 1 copy of Fisherman, because as I've said, we're not playing that many basic energy here. We need to be able to recover them. That's what we do. In terms of the items, 4 Ultra Ball, because it's the best ball card we've got. 4 Versus Seeker, because it's amazing and we want to reuse all of our supporters. Sometimes we want a Brigitte, sometimes we want a Guzma. It's just nice to have the option. 3 Rare Candy. The only reason we're not playing 4 here is because of DIANCIE. DIANCIE makes you less reliant on Rare Candy, but in the early game, in the mid to late game, you don't want to be using DIANCIE. So the deal here is you use DIANCIE to evolve up the first Gardevoir, and then between KORRINA and Octillery, you should be able to draw into Rare Candy more easily, so you don't need to be playing the full complement of 4. 2 Rescue Stretcher, because you don't need to be getting your energy back with item cards, because you can get your energy back using Fisherman and Versus Seeker and TAPU LELE, both of which will search for Fisherman, so you can afford to play Rescue Stretcher, which gives you more options than Super Rod. One field blower to turn off things like Gardevoir. Get rid of that tool on Gardevoir, because you do use quite a few abilities here with your TAPU LELE and your Octillery and your Gallade and so on. But it also gets rid of things like Floatstone and Fighting Fury Belt. And one choice band, you don't need to do a huge amount of extra damage here because you're doing damage just from attaching energy, which you can do with Gardevoir's ability. And actually, as much as I was talking about Octillery and Gallade a minute ago, I probably should have mentioned that you're kind of relying on Gardevoir's ability as well. So it's just really nice to be able to have that choice band, but you don't need it all that often. And the only stadium here you're playing is Silent Lab, and you're playing free copies of it. Why Silent Lab? Because it doesn't hurt you too much. Look at the abilities you're hoping to use on a turn-to-turn basis. You're hoping to be using Gallade, Octillery, Gardevoir. These are all evolved Pokemon. So you can turn off your opponent's abilities, things like Volcanion EX and Darkrai GX, while keeping your own. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is very, very nice indeed. I love this deck. There are two decks I'm excited about when they come out in Burning Shadows. Gardevoir and Golisopod. I'm going to be streaming them both at twitch.tv/PTCGradio, so make sure you're following me there. As for the comment section, it's live, so go nuts, be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at @TheWussy. If you want to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/PTCGradio. The most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.